The key to the house was still in the same place, and so was the gun, a .22 rifle. I took the gun down, took a bullet from the box, and loaded the gun. And then I went in the living room and sat down on the couch. I looked out across the lake where there was a beautiful weeping willow. I had taken, I majored in English in college, but I also took a lot of forestry classes. And in dendrology, I learned the Latin name of the weeping willow. It's Salix babylonica. And that's what I was thinking as I gazed out across the lake. I was remembering those wonderful days in college when I was learning about trees and forestry, and I'd go to the library and scour the reference materials to learn of the place held by the trees in literature, legend, and mythology. Weeping willow is associated with death. There were other associations, but the death thing was the only one I could remember at the time. How apt, I thought. I pulled my thoughts back in the lake house and looked at the clock. It was 11:30 in the morning. I positioned the gun and paused. If I did this, it was going to be final. There would be no going back. But there was nothing I could think of. Nothing big enough, nothing important enough to get me out of the whirlpool of depression. I lay alone, unconscious, and bleeding for 8 hours. When I regained consciousness, I struggled to sit up. I was covered in blood, some of it dry and crusty, and some still wet and sticky. And it was dark. It was completely dark. Thinking the blood may have dried my eyelids closed, I tried to pry my eyelids open, but still nothing. Somewhere in me was the spark of the survivor. Getting to my feet, I took the first step towards living again. I headed for the kitchen where I knew there was a telephone. I found the phone and picked it up and looked at it. There was nothing there. I was going to have to dial it by touch. I must have tried 7 or 8 times, but I just couldn't punch in my parents' phone number. Finally, I gave up and hung the phone up. With my back to the refrigerator, I tried to figure out what to do next. The thought of finding the gun and finishing the whole sorry business had just begun to form when the phone rang. When I hadn't come home that night, my parents had called everybody they could think of who might know where I was. One of the people they called was Johnny, the man who owned the house. And it was Johnny on the phone. The moment I heard his voice, I wanted to laughed with abandon and said, "That's okay, I can't see either." What? So we all got seated and did, the usual small talk. And then turning to me, Vera said, "I can teach you to do just about anything. Where do you want to start?" Where do I want to start? I don't know. I don't have a clue. After some silence, Vera said, "Well, how about this? Why don't you tell me a little bit about yourself? And that might let me know where to begin." I was stumped. In the past, if somebody said, "Tell me a little bit about yourself," I'd reach out at random and grab a few happy memories and use those to tell somebody a little bit about myself. But I couldn't do that anymore. It felt like my whole life had been stripped away. The kind of things that I would tell people were the feelings of mastery as strapped into my kayak. I would navigate the toughest whitewater rivers in the southeast. The thrill of speed on a thoroughbred at full gallop, or my favorite, arriving triumphant at the top of a mountain after a long and challenging hike. I think it was at Sewanee that I developed this love of climbing mountains. Sewanee is a beautiful school. It's a private liberal arts college that occupies about 10,000 acres of the Cumberland Plateau, and it's an outdoor person's paradise. Well, since I couldn't use any of those to tell Vera a little bit about myself, I finally, fairly lamely said, I majored in English. Well, being the professional that she was, Vera was able to grab onto that little tiny thread that I gave her, and that day she started teaching me Braille. At the end of an hour and a half, I could read Braille. How cool was that? I could read 3-letter words in Braille. Bad, dad, cab. It felt like I had really accomplished something. And then I said, you are 26 years old. Why do you think you've accomplished something? Because you can read a 3-letter word in Braille. But I let myself feel the accomplishment. And I dove into learning Braille and all the other skills that Vera taught me. It was 2 days after I brought Sadie home, and it was our wedding day. As the ceremony drew to a close, the minister asked us to kneel. We knelt on the kneeler that I had chosen, especially for the occasion. Needle-pointed by my father, it depicted Jesus performing his first miracle, that of turning water into wine. This was a miracle. Just 2.5 years earlier, I had not thought life was worth living. And today, I was marrying the man I loved and poised to move forward into a new life. As I knelt, I discovered that Sadie had been lying there with her chin on the kneeler the entire time, with my left hand resting on Sadie's head and my right hand in Jim's. The minister blessed our marriage. That was almost 30 years ago. We've loved each other. We've shared joys and sorrows, trials and triumphs. We've made a life together. And into that life, one by one, have come my 4 dogs. And today, with a man who loves and believes in me, walking beside me, with a dog that I love and believe in, guiding every step of the way, I'm once again climbing mountains. Thank you.